Hey, hello and welcome. We're going to get started. Welcome to the Falmouth Art Center's last Zoom art talk in our spring fundraiser series, You Art What You Eat. I'm Laura Reckford, Executive Director of the Falmouth Art Center. We're so excited about tonight's program, Democracy of the Land, Mobil Warming with Jay Critchley. And since it is our last talk in the You Art What You Eat series, a special thank you to all of you. Many of you have been with us for all four talks. We really appreciate your support. This has been a big success. First, a few announcements. We are recording tonight's session because there were several people who registered but couldn't make it. And also some Zoom tips for those who need them. Most of us are pretty experienced with Zoom by now, but for those who need them, the mute button is a little picture of a microphone, usually on the bottom left, sometimes on the top right or the top left, depending on your device. You'll want to keep yourself on mute with the red line going through it, unless you want to ask a question. You can also ask a question through the chat. Turns out these microphones on these devices are very sensitive. So if you're not muted, we will hear things in your household, like your phone ringing, your dog barking. And so, but never fear, because if we find you're not muted, we have the ability to mute you, and we will do that. If you want to be seen, you simply click the little video camera next to the mute button. And if you don't want to be on camera, you just click that button and the red line goes across it, and that means we don't see you. You have two different views on a toggle, the speaker view and the gallery view. They're usually in the upper left or the upper right, depending on your device. Gallery view is what we call the Brady Bunch view. That's where you see everyone who's here in equal size boxes. Speaker view puts the speaker in a big box and everyone else is in small boxes. So it's fun to use gallery view at the beginning, particularly to see who's here. And then I will be spotlighting our speaker, Jay Critchley, when he starts up. And so that will switch your screens to the speaker view, and we'll also be using the shared screen with the PowerPoint and a video as well. So Jay is happy to answer questions during the talk. And the best way to do that is using the chat key. So if you can use the chat, which is on the bottom of your Zoom screen for your questions. And then at the end of the talk, we'll just open it up to questions, and then you can either use the chat or just ask questions. And so that's it for now for the Zoom rules of the sandbox. And now to some information about You Art What You Eat. This is the 11th year of our spring fundraiser. And as many of you know, this event usually takes place in person at local restaurants. We reinvented it for the pandemic era with 4 terrific speakers this month. And if you signed up for a talk that you missed, just let me know, and I will email you a link to the recording of the talk you missed. For those of you who have been by the Art Center the past couple weeks, you have seen Jay's banner depicting the Mayflower Compact with images of women replacing the men who signed the compact. And that is currently on view at the Art Center if you want to swing by and check that out. As many of you know, each night of these art talks is paired with a local restaurant. We want to just support our local restaurants who are struggling. And so I know we'll all enjoy our dinners tonight from Water Street Kitchen in Woods Hole. We have a special treat for all of you who signed up for the talk. We have gift bags with a beautiful piece of pottery and a lovely weaving made by our local artists in our Falmouth Art Center community. So just stop by the Art Center and pick up your gift bag whenever you like. We also always thank our sponsors, Karen and John Burton from Sotheby's Realty, who have made this whole event possible. And a brief plug about the Falmouth Art Center. We are free and open to the public every day. We have 3 new exhibits every month. And right now we have our annual juried photo show with 53 photos, mostly by local photographers, but also people from around the country as well who submitted pictures and got in. And in our Landau Partan gallery, we have Below the Surface, a very exciting, fascinating collaboration between Woods Hole scientists and local artists. And in our Siegel gallery, we have the works of Mesha Noor, who is originally from Pakistan, and her work is inspired by her homeland. And we have virtual art receptions every month, second Monday of the month at 4 o'clock. Our classes are on Zoom and in person. Our summer vacation camps for kids are in person and almost completely full. You can check out our website, falmouthart.org, for everything going on. And now to tonight's program. I am so pleased that Jay Critchley was available to give this talk tonight. Jay is a longtime resident of Provincetown, and the shifting dunes, landscape, and sea are his palette. He has utilized sand, Christmas trees, fish skins, plastic tampon applicators washed up on beaches, pre-demolition buildings, and selected sites in his work. He is a conceptual and multimedia artist, writer, and activist whose work has traversed the globe, showing across the US and in Argentina, Japan, England, Spain, France, Holland, Germany, Ireland, and Colombia. Jay has had residences at the Santa Fe Art Institute, Fundación Valparaiso, in Andalusia, Spain, Carmack in Marne-sur-Seine, France, Milepost 5 in Portland, Oregon, and Harvard University, where he also lectured. His movie, Toilet Treatments, won an HBO award, and he recently gave a TED Talk, Portrait of the Artist as a Corporation. His 2015 survey show at the Provincetown Art Association and Museum traveled to Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida. He has received awards from the Boston Society of Architects and the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum in New York City for his environmental projects. The 2020 edition of Provincetown Arts Magazine has published his piece, Democracy of the Land, the Moo Moo World. Jay was honored by the Massachusetts State Legislature as an artist and founder and director of the Provincetown Community Compact and producer of the Swim for Life, which has raised millions of dollars for AIDS, women's health, and the community. And without further ado, welcome Jay Critchley. I see some hands clapping, and Jay, are you there?
Armed ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to... I am underground here. I'm looking for the deep state disease surveillance Illuminati. Anyone out there? This appears to be a bunker. It actually is, I believe it's an old septic tank. What is in there? I can't imagine. I'm safe down here. I feel safe from the predatory, starving equity analysts that are taking over the world. Have you seen those post-evangelical, climate-gentrified meritocracy? Or the bio and the water futures? I have a question for everyone. Are your fever dreams replacing sex? Let's see if we can make it out here. Oh my, this is a different reality. A computer, St. Francis, birds. Why are all these people looking at me? Look, look. These people are looking at me. Let me hop out and it's raining out. But I like this reality. It's a little bit brighter than down there. This is my compound. Those are flags from the Swim for Life. This is my composting bin. And of course, the beautiful tulips that came out and remind us the triumvirate of tulips. Beautiful. Let's go inside. I think I have a gathering to attend. Ah, warmth. Hello. Let's see if we can get a look at me. I gotta leave this. Hello.
There you are. Hello.
Hello. I just came from I don't know where I was, but it's kind of nice to be here among you all. I guess I'll do my thing. How's everyone doing?
Great.
I guess everyone's on mute, right? Thank you for the invitation to be here. And I need to do my slideshow there. Okay. So democracy of the land. A lot of my work over the years, many years, has really been about the environment and what the environment mean, what does it mean, the environment? And eventually I focused on the idea of democracy of the land in the last 5 or 6 years. And the concept is that who owns the land, who has rights to the land, who controls the air above the land or what's below the land, who has the right to be on the land, whose land is it? And so last year during COVID, I embarked on a series of projects, one of them being a series called Viral Warming. Instead of global warming, viral warming. And the concept is that the virus that the pandemic that we experience and are still experiencing is really because of a disruption of the land and the environment. And as we encroach and deforest and desertify the land, the animals are forced to come closer to us. And so I did a series of pieces on recycled street banners from Provincetown. If you've ever been to Provincetown, they hang across Commercial Street, 3 by 8 feet. And I've been collecting them, and I decided to do a historic series about viruses. So HIV, malaria, Ebola. These are all like historic major viruses and pandemics that have happened throughout history. Zika. And you can see I painted the canvases with similar imagery, and then the lettering was different for each virus, smallpox.
Jay, are you showing your PowerPoint right now?
Yeah,
Because we're not seeing that yet, so you need to share the screen to show your PowerPoint.
okay. Let me see. Right, okay. Can you see it now?
Not yet, so make sure you do the green button and the blue button to make it go to the full screen share.
You want me to share the sound and optimize the video?
You can do that or either way, but we're not getting to the desktop yet, so you definitely need to make sure you're doing the green button and the blue button. Oops, did we lose them? All right, we might have lost Jay, but I'm sure he'll be right back on. We practiced so many times. All right, let's get Jay back here. Folks, I know Jay will be back any minute, and here he comes. Okay.
Hello,
Hello, you're back.
I'm back. So I want to share my screen. Yes.
So you just want to click behind the Zoom screen. You've got your PowerPoint is right behind there. There it is.
There it is. We're on.
We're on, and now you just need to click on the first slide.
Right. Yeah. Right. And slideshow. Okay. Well, sorry about that. You heard what I was saying. Did you hear any audio?
We heard all the audio, but suddenly I realized you were talking from your PowerPoint. So
okay, so you know these are some of the images that I created from the street banners I recycled, and it's all
Jay, you definitely want to do the begin slideshow so it fills up the whole screen from the first slide. There you go. Okay.
Right. So anyway, these are the visuals that you didn't get before. And you know, I used various objects to spray paint images on the canvases of these recycled signs, and so these are some of the historic viruses that are part of viral warming project. The smallpox, the TB, I think. And COVID, I did a little something different. I took images of people with masks on and made the lettering out of this. So this is an ongoing project that I threw this in here because I started working with masks in 2003 when the first SARS scare happened. And to me, these two, the major Newsweek magazines, they all had the same images on, and I changed it from SARS to CARS. So the image CARS is the new age of epidemics. Because to me, the bottom issue is fossil fuels And that's what's disrupting the whole planet and causing. So you can see, this said SARS. So then I did the 2 banners, SARS cars, just last summer. So I'm sort of looking at the pandemic, the viral pandemic, as other pandemics relating to the culture, to the environment. Fossil fuels, for instance, or other pandemics of racial inequality or economic inequality. These are all pandemics we're dealing with. And this is one large 8x10 piece. This is photographed inside. And this is called the Tree of Strife. And it's a very large piece. And these little flowers are sort of pasted on, you can see, and the whole piece is made from clips from magazines and newspapers from last year during the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic. I'd like to return back to another pandemic that is actually still going on in the world. We don't hear much about it, and actually 33 million people have died of HIV/AIDS. And back in 1989, I created the Old Glory Condom Corporation, which was a response to HIV at the time. And it's worn with pride countrywide, condoms with a conscience. And it's the flag imprinted with the condom imprinted with the flag. This was launched at MIT List Visual Arts Center in Cambridge. And the concept of the project was to force the government to speak and deal with HIV/AIDS, which they hadn't at that point. Reagan had even mentioned. So it's a very different way that we responded to a pandemic back in the early 90s. And so I had a real corporate structure. I produced condoms that were distributed around the world. Latex is for Lovers was a button that was made because at the time people weren't aware that the HIV virus could be transmitted through lambskin condoms. And Newsweek picked up on it, People magazine. I had a video, I had a whole, it's an ongoing project, so I had a whole bunch of people do some photo shoots in the cemetery. This is one, Long May It Wave. And recruitment of people for a safer sex army of safer sex practices. I even made condoms for condominiums, which was a whole installation at Berta Walker Gallery of colored condoms. Make Love Not War was another part of what it moved into. And I did a big project in Connecticut with middle school students with cameras. At the time, they were like those throwaway cameras that probably seem ancient right now, taking pictures of people holding up condoms. And then I went to the San Francisco, I did an exhibition there about 10 years ago. And this is I made a model out of the Transamerica building, which is the iconic San Francisco. And, the San Francisco Chronicle did an article about me and the whole idea that this was about corporate responsibility. Well, of course, Transamerica building decided that they said that I could be arrested for using their image, which of course I loved. Bring it on, right? And so, this is a project that's kind of related to HIV. So many people were dying. So this is the casket and capsule condo community, which is basically stacks of caskets and capsule living spaces, like you've probably heard about in Japan. And this is one of the units where people could live. There, of course, there was also a comment on lack of affordable housing, which of course we know is a big crisis now. So this is one of the capsule living spaces, and you're surrounded by caskets of bodies around. And then in the back was the Chapel of the Humpback Whale in the back here as you walk through the installation. And I had implements, original whaling implements. And also I was out at the beach and I found the carcass of a humpback whale. So this is a Bible reading of a humpback whale. And of course, democracy of the land. Again, I'm returning to this. This is a series of images you'll see using the lighthouse in the water. And of course, if we cannot talk about democracy of the land without talking about Native Americans and the disaster that Europeans brought to this continent with pandemics and religion. This is Columbus, of course, and this is an image from the Documents of Discovery, which were written by the popes. And basically the Documents of Discovery stated that anyone who was not Christian, you could own or take their land. This was the foundation of this country. And of course, Indian lands were for sale. And I already mentioned Old Glory condoms, but one of the ways that I work with ideas and concepts is I create corporate personas and corporate entities. And these are just some of the corporate entities that I've created. As Laura mentioned, I have a TEDx talk, the Portrait of the Artist as a Corporation. And the idea is if corporations can be individuals, which the Supreme Court has stated that, then why can't individuals be corporations? We would have all the tax write-offs. We'd have the bankruptcy protections. I mean, it's a win-win. So the TEDx talk. So mobile warming is comes out of a long time look at our energy profile in this country, the way that we produce energy, going back to anti-nuclear proposals and projects and videos and performances. So you may know that ExxonMobil and other major corporations have lied to us about the effects of carbon in the atmosphere and in the ground. And so that's why I've changed it from global warming to mobile warming. And you see the seal of the United States. And this is No with the Flow. Now I also I started this project in Florida about 5 or 6 years ago when the governor, Scott, was governor. He's now senator. And I used the seal of the state of Florida. Well, of course, I got a letter from the governor saying that I had no right to reproduce the great seal of the state of Florida without prior approval of the Department of State. So I thought, oh, this is great. So actually, I have a shirt on that a T-shirt, Mobile Warming. That can you see that? Okay. The Blessed Virgin Rubber Goddess is another project that, you know, as I've been talking, I'm relating these viruses and things to the environment, the way that we have mistreated the environment, which has caused a lot of the havoc we're dealing with, the bottom line. And so when the rainforests in Brazil were being destroyed, what comes from the rainforest? Rubber trees, condoms. So I created the Blessed Virgin Rubber Goddess, which is basically adapting the powers of Our Lady to today's issues, like the Black Madonna or Our Lady of Guadalupe. So this is immaculate protection. And I had installations in a number of places. This is in the Boston Center for the Arts. And I had votive candles made. with Our Lady, and they had Spanish and English translations. And they read somewhat, "O protectress of the rainforest, we share in the abundant, fruitful nature in thy creation of stem and branch, leaf and liquid latex cloak. Cloak us in thy protective sheath of loving latex for our infinite erotic and benign pleasure." And the Archdiocese of Boston was not happy at all. They had an editorial in their newspaper about this was a desecration of Our Lady, and they demanded that the newspaper, the South End News and the Institute of Contemporary Art cease from showing this work. And again, a connection to HIV and the environment. You might have remembered the Valdez oil spill in Alaska in the late, I believe it was the mid to late 90s or early 90s. So that's when the Day Without Oil, a Day Without Art and Day Without AIDS was started. Actually, World AIDS Day, December 1st, started as Day Without Art. And so my idea was, let's have a day without oil and connect it with a day without AIDS. So I determined what the average person would be spending on one day for fossil fuels. And at the time it was $570 per person. And now I think it's around $950. So the idea was that to bring awareness, of course, to the fossil fuels that were, engulfing us, our health, and donate that money to a nonprofit or an organization that you feel you'd like to support. And of course, I have to throw in my family, Irish Catholic. We were the Catholic Family of the Year, and religion again, religion seems to come up. But my first guerrilla work of art was my family took over a public nativity set. Imagine, this is what I was taught as a young person, to just take it over. And so that was the first guerrilla artwork that I was, you could call it abuse, I guess. And I mentioned cows before, and you'll hear this sound. The moo moo world. Now, cows, as you may know, cows, horses, and pigs and other barnyard animals they did not exist in North America. There was no immunization. There was no one had any was protected from them. And so we Europeans brought them, and and lots of methane, of course, with cows. But so I kind of was studying, last year, of course, was the 2024 100th anniversary of the Pilgrims. Of course, the COVID took over that whole conversation, but to me, it's not the new world. I realize that we call this the new world. Well, it's the moo moo world. It's the cows that came over, the barnyard animals and Europeans who were immune to the diseases that brought the pandemic here.
And
so
Jay, we have a request for you to speak up a little louder. I can hear you fine, but we do have that request. So
okay.
There you go.
Is this better? Is this better? Yeah.
I hope so.
I turned up the mic. So this is a series of prints I did with a rerouted cow, which is an image that I had used before, and I'll tell you more about rerouters later. So each of these is a unique print, and it has a unique sand surface to it. So this is, you can see this one has sort of a black sand, and this is more of a mixed sand. And I collect sand, as you probably might know. Here's more of a beach sand color. So each of these 35 images are different, unique prints. And I collect sand from all over the world. It's an Earth Commons project. So that is the Mobil world. And the other, this natural security is a response to national security. National security, which to me is natural security, which we're finding out more and more about in terms of the devastation that the weather and typhoons and hurricanes and rising sea levels has on populations, refugees, climate refugees. So we're really, natural security is really underlying, I think, a lot of the issues in the world. And this was a cover of Art New England. And of course, this is the government sinking under an ice cap. And hopefully what's going on now in Washington is a hopeful sign of some changes. And it's time now for let's have a Walmartini. Don't you think it's time? A nice little break. And now here are my sand cars. Now this is what I first, as an artist, I didn't even know I was an artist in 1981. I just had this car and I wanted to cover it in sand. And people are like, are you an artist? I'm like, I don't know. I just have to, I'm compelled. So this was the beginning of my fascination with automobiles and with what automobiles represented and symbolized in the culture, which is mobility, freedom, but also urban sprawl, pollution, the carbonation of the atmosphere, etc. So this is called Just Visiting for the Weekend. It's in the McMillan Wharf parking lot right on the water in Provincetown. And it sat there. The second year was with Nancy and Ronald Reagan. And the town wanted to tow it away. They're like, you can't have that there. It's not legal. And I had to hire a lawyer and go to town to the select board. And they couldn't figure out, like, is it a sculpture? Is it a car? Is it a this? They just threw their hands up, And it was legal. It had a sticker and everything. And so this is Ron and Nancy in the early 80s. And people just mobbed this. It was right as you entered the parking lot. And of course, we had to have the Pietà on the dashboard. And then I did a car in a mausoleum, underground mausoleum in Providence, Rhode Island, North Burial Ground. And this is a mummified 1956 Chevrolet Impala, like the classic American car. I was really, really lucky to borrow this car from the mafia. That's a whole other story. And there was only like a half an inch on either side to get this inside the mausoleum. This was part of a whole larger project. I worked in the cemetery with a dozen artists, dancers, musicians that did projects in the cemetery. This is in Chelsea, in a gallery in Freight and Volume Gallery in New York City. This is a mummified car, but before I wrapped this car up and mummified it, I took all the organs of the car and wrapped them individually, ritualistically, and put them in, and then and these are all recycled plastic shopping bags. Everything is recycled. And there was a performance ritual as part of the opening. And of course, we all know about the Road to Nowhere. This is, the famous Alaskan Road to Nowhere. And that's kind of, we should have taken a lesson from this like 10 years ago. And so also getting back to the viruses and to the masks that we've been wearing, which I started, like I said, I started in 2003. This is a self-portrait I did about 10 years ago, made out of masks, tie-string surgical masks. And I've done a lot of projects with masks. This is an American flag made out of tie-string surgical masks, and this has a fan on it. So if you stand near it, it's like the strings like attack you. It's like, they're they come after you. It's about 8 feet tall and 6 feet wide. And then I did a series of, I sort of eroticized the masks. And again, this is 20 years ago. This is upstairs in the Atlantic House in Provincetown. That's an Andy Warhol trash. That's an Andy Warhol poster. And I did some sort of tied up this model with masks up in the bar. There's another model outside. And just some other images. And this is called the Masquerade Ball Project. Even the animals got in on the fun. And also now then another project related to automobiles and petroleum and democracy of the land is the Big Twig. Now we all know the Big Dig in Boston. It's the largest project in US history. It costs, well, who knows, it's up 25 billion at this point. So I proposed to call it the Big Twig. And I did a series of projects related to it. This you can see the blue, the red, and the green line in Boston. The T line, they're shaped. The Big Dig project is in the shape of a tree. So you can see it's got two branches. So I created this logo of and called it the Big Twig because I thought it was a message that we were receiving from the Big Dig. This was like a symbolic, sort of spiritual message. And so I went down into I got permission to go into the Big Dig before it opened. I brought a bunch of musicians and poets and people, and at first they weren't going to let me in there, and then I called up all my politicians, and the next day they let me in. And so I created a Big Twig tunnel tape CD of sounds and recordings from the Big Dig. And it's on my website, jaycritchley.com. You can check out some of the, this was a cover of the Provincetown magazine, Gateway to a Greenway, which I thought was kind of funny. The Pilgrim Springs Motel, again, a Pilgrims, the Pilgrims stole, renamed the spring that the Native Americans were using in Truro. So, but I took this motel and created the Beige Motel. And you may know about the Beige Motel was on Route 6 in North Truro. And I encrusted the entire motel in sand. And I've always wanted to do a building. And when I had a confirmation from two physicists from Johns Hopkins that the color of the universe is, believe it or not, beige. They determined with looking at 600,000 images of the universe that the color of the universe is actually beige. I know it's boring. So this confirmed to me, this sort of inspired me to, this building came available. So so I had a big opening with 21 vacuum cleaners in front, which I found in the basement, exactly 21. It's called the 21 gun salute. And then at night, because this was about color, the color of the universe, each week the motel was lit with a different color in the summer of like 2006, I think, or 7. This went on all summer. And so this is one week of red, another week of green, and weeks of yellow and orange and other colors. And then of course I floated. Well, I said that I floated. The Beige Motel arrived at the Rose Kennedy Greenway. Now, this looks like it's actually floating there, doesn't it? So people were getting in arguments about, no, I saw the motel, it's still there. No, it's in Boston. Jay sent it on a barge to Boston. So everyone thought, nobody knew what happened. So this was my fantasy of what to do with the motel, was to bring it to the Rose Kennedy Greenway. They were looking for artwork. needless to say, they weren't inspired. And of course, Putin visited Beige Motel, and here he is dressed with Mutlina, never can pronounce, Ludmila, his wife. They're all dressed in beige. So I thought, they must be at the Beige Motel. So I made a video, as you can see on my website, Putin visits the Beige Motel. And then Tacky. Now Tacky is another, one of my earliest corporate projects, Tampon Applicator Creative Clubs International, which I started collecting these applicators off the beaches. They were washed up from the Boston sewage system or from all over the world. And they were flushed and just washed, you know, and I started collecting them. I didn't know what they were. You know, I have 6 sisters, Irish Catholic family, 1 bathroom. Growing up, you'd think I knew what they were? No. Anyway, I started making sculpture with them, and I, you know, realized the symbolic importance of them. You know, I started Tacky, the organization, and I was on a campaign to stop the manufacture of these, you know, disposable, so to speak, you know, non-biodegradable feminine hygiene products. This is Bella Abzug. I made a hat for an organization in Canada that Bella Abzug wore. She was if you remember, she was a congresswoman from New York who wore hats. So this is a tampon hat. I also created Miss Tampon Liberty, 3,000 applicators on a gown that sounded absolutely gorgeous when I walked in it. It was musical. And I went to the centennial of the Statue of Liberty and did my song and dance. And here you'll see me here. And the ladies loved it. I had an installation also at the Art Association Museum. And the bottom of the pedestal says, you know, Emma Lazarus's poem, "Give me your poor, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore." And she was referring to immigrants, but I was talking about garbage floating in the ocean. I submitted a bill to the Mass Legislature to ban the sale of non-biodegradable feminine hygiene products. And so there was a hearing, and I had a press conference, and of course, all the lobbyists from Tambran and Tampax and everything, they all showed up and, you know, spoke against the bill, and the bill did not. But not until I appeared a second time as Miss Tampon Liberty in the State House, walking through those marble hollowed halls with the rustling of those applicators. It was a high point in my life until the police tried to kick me out. I was there for a hearing, you know, to testify. They tried to kick me out, and then they looked at what I was wearing, and they're like, they didn't know what to say. They walked away. So I never got kicked out of it. And this is a Tacky Town installation made from garbage in New York Harbor on the New Jersey shore. And of course, I made a pilgrim monument. This was the Pilgrim Tamponument. I took an old postcard, but I actually, and then of course, Miss Tampon Liberty, I had a rally at Race Point to protest the outfall pipe, the sewage outfall pipe that came into, opened up in 1999 with all of the regional sewage of Boston was pumped into, it was treated, not totally. So this was a protest. And I'm singing, "I Miss Tampon Liberty, still yearning to be free." There's the Pilgrim Monument, the Tamponument. And we mixed it up with Miss Tampon Liberty and condoms, patriotic condoms. The IRS, how are we doing for time?
We are at 7:21.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time left.
We have time.
Okay. So the IRS is another corporate structure I set up. Of course, you know what the IRS is, but for me, it's the International Rerouters Society. And it's about it's about a ceremony and a ritual of connecting us to the earth. And it's my version of corporate creep. And this idea of the International Rerouter Society started in 1983, where I went to the Provincetown dump. It wasn't the sanitary landfill back then. And I started turning Christmas trees up, and I created Forest Dump. And, you know, they stole it from me, Forrest Gump. But what can I do? I started having ceremonies about, you know, with creating a boat with a recycled tree, and went out on the beach on January 7th after the 12 days of stockpiling during the holiday season of materialism. And every year on January 7th for 38 years, and you're welcome to come next year, January 7th, 4 o'clock, Harbor Hotel Beach in Provincetown, rain or shine or blizzard. People come and they put things on the tree, and we burn it, and there's a whole ritual. Every year has a different theme. Extractive democracy was last year. Viral warming was this year. And it's been on the front page of the Cape Cod Times almost every year. So it's a way to purge, you know, for me personally and for other people, to just purge what the previous year and to start anew. Here's a blizzard, you know, and these people, don't ask me why they showed up, but they did in the middle of a blizzard. And of course the burning of the and then, of course, I created a theme park for Provincetown, a theme park for affluent people, for the affluent, because the town was gentrifying. So here's a cutting ceremony. And I had a little logo made, the monument and the X with the cutesy whale and the rainbow flag. And I created the Visitor Processing Center. This is when there was a fire at Whalers Wharf. So this space where you see the castle, Cinderella's castle, was burned down. So I proposed that we replace it with Cinderella's castle, and that we check people coming into town, make sure that they have enough money in the bank and their credit is good, and, you know, take a fecal sample and make sure that we have the right people coming into town. Another major proposal was creating Martucket Island Resort and Theme Park. And this was a call from the Boston Society of Architects to come up with a plan for these windmills that were proposed, as you probably know, Cape Wind. So I proposed Martucket Island Resort and Theme Park. And it's sort of a comment on our confused energy policies. As you can see here, we've got, you know, Bohemian Arts Gambling Hall, and we've got Marconi Sonic Chowder. We've got the Tower of Terror. These are different rides here. Global Warming Showgirls Palace, Captain Ahab Fitness Center, and Road Rage Rehabilitation Project, Faith-Based Biosphere, the Doppler Center for Power Failures. So this won an award from the Boston Society of Architects for this competition. And of course, again, we're back at this time. It's not global warming. It's not mobile warming. It's mobile yawning. No, I'm sorry. I get confused. It's global yawning. Global yawning. And this is the logo for the global yawning. And what I discovered was that yawning actually cools the brain. I know it sounds crazy, and we all yawn. So I went around for a year or so recording people yawning and studying yawning, and realizing that if everyone in the world yawned at the same time, we would cool the planet. Simple. Doesn't cost us a thing. And so I had a couple of exhibitions. I have videos of this. You'll see it on my website. I have a lot of videos, short videos. So these are a series of me yawning. You know, I was teaching yawning. My jaw, actually pulled my jaw out. I was yawning so much. And I'm actually an expert yawner because I was doing it in a co-counseling, a counseling practice I was doing. I learned to yawn, that it's really a great way to release. So now this is a more recent project from 2 years ago, leading up to 2020. And Laura mentioned it. It's outside if it's not raining at the center. It's a feminist re-signing of the Mayflower Compact. And so this was meant to travel all in libraries and places all over New England, but of course COVID hit last year. So, but I've got, everyone from Angela Davis to Rachel Carson, Maya Angelou, Yoko Ono was actually signing the document. This is the classic painting you'll see with all the men. We've got Eleanor Roosevelt, and then we have Deb Haaland. We have the three new Native American and congresswomen, and the other, the ones on the bottom layer there. Of course, we have Cher. We had to include Cher, and Ayanna Pressley from Boston, Grace Gabea, who is a Portuguese immigrant woman from Provincetown, a friend of mine who's a poet. So that was this project. And then another large project that I did starting in Santa Fe, right when 2016, when the former president was elected, I immediately knew it was about race. So I had a residency at Santa Fe Art Institute in New Mexico. And so I created the Whiteness House, Tarred and Feathered, and it's a walk-in model. And so I recreated it. That was in 2017. I recreated it at Bubala's. They had put this awning in the restaurant on Commercial Street. So I asked them if I could install it underneath. So this is the nighttime. I did the different colors that I did with the Beige Motel. So this was one of the colors. It was up for like 10 days before the last presidential election. And these are some of the high school students involved at the Provincetown Art Association Museum Youth Reach program. And you can see you can walk into it. I had a shredder inside for people to bring. And I had a lot of entertainment and readings and such. And now I'd like to show, just for a few more minutes, of a video that I did. And so I guess I stop share and I go to share screen, right?
Yep, you can do share screen again and make sure those two buttons are pressed, and then hit the blue.
Yep.
And then you will be back on your desktop, hopefully, for your video.
So can you see the desktop?
I see the desktop, and
Okay.
well, you see your PowerPoint. So now you just need to, behind your PowerPoint, I believe, is your browser with your video. There it is.
Yeah. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so let's, so this is another project I did last year when COVID hit town. I had these 36 solar lights, solar powered lights that I was going to use for a major project at the VFW hall in town that was supposed to be demolished, but it got canceled. So I decided I wanted to do something. These are lights, so I brought them into the town and explored, and you'll see what I did with them. So let's just get this started. Okay. It's going okay, Laura?
Yep. Now you're starting it at the beginning, I think.
Yes. I think I'll stop it there.
Okay.
Because I just wanted to show a preview, because this is, I believe, unofficially, I've heard that this will be in the film festival in Provincetown in June.
Yep. And so you just want to do the stop share, the red at the top. There
Right.
you go. And we're back.
So that was last year. That was my way of, making sense, at least for myself, out of what happened. What's happening still.
So now is a good time for questions, I think, for Jay. Jay, can you?
Sure, yeah.
Now is
yeah.
a good time for
I
questions.
think
So
I've talked enough.
I see a question here for Jay. If Native Americans were officially renters in the European view, use only, might you consider some satirical piece on stewardship versus rentership versus ownership, or have you done that already?
Well, yikes. Well, my septic space that you saw in the beginning, that started out as a septic summer rental unit. That's in 1997. I think I like your idea. I think there's possibilities for it, for expanding the various ways that we use the land or take the land. Yeah. Let me think about that.
Here's a question. Do you own a car?
I have a rented car. My family did an intervention with me a couple of years ago because all my cars were old and they're always broke down, and I was out on the highway getting towed so many times that they demanded that I get a rental car. So I have a car that works.
Another question. What happened to the sand-covered car?
It's in my yard, right near the septic space. Been sitting in the yard for 30 years. It's really falling apart. I was hoping the Smithsonian Institute would take it as a, and they still might. But it's still intact. It's still.
I've always wanted to ask you, Jay, how you got the sand to adhere to the car.
Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's like a Elmer's glue, like a matte medium that I would paint on, and then I would bounce. I would have a piece of glass or something hard surface and bounce the sand off it, and it would collect on the sides of the car. And there are many layers.
Right.
Many layers.
Here's quite a question for you, Jay. Is the human race doomed?
We were doomed from the beginning. We just need to recognize it and enjoy ourselves, because the planet's going to be fine. We know, whatever happens to the human race, the planet's going to be fine. Planet has millions of years to do what they do. We were never meant to be here forever. So yes.
So the short answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we should be glad about that, because we don't want to live forever. We know there's an end. Of course, it's about how that happens. Obviously, there'll be a lot of pain.
And on to another question. You've shown so many amazing works. Which are you most proud of, and which do you feel has been the most influential?
Oh, well, I have to say the Oglery condoms, I feel like I actually probably might have saved some people's lives by educating people about, not just about condom use, but about not using lambskin condoms, which were very common back then. And so we had a whole campaign about that. And I think, I don't know, there's, every project is like, you just go on to the next. Certainly the tacky tampon applicator creative clubs has a lot of resonance now. In fact, I'm thinking of resubmitting the bill to the legislature because we don't get me, the plastic thing drives me crazy. If I could just say one thing, we've been all guilt tripped by the corporations to thinking that it's our individual responsibility. And they love this. Let's recycle, recycle, recycle. Let's pick up trash, pick up trash, pick up trash. We're not going to recycle our way out of this thing. It's a corporate thing. The tax write-offs, all of the tax incentives and write-offs that the corporations get need to be eliminated. That's the problem.
Other questions for Jay?
You can see I have a few opinions.
Questions for Jay. Now's your
Or
chance.
thoughts. People just have
Thoughts, comments.
Yeah,
This is your chance. This is a very busy
I'd love
man.
to
We
hear,
have him here.
Yes, yes. Someone raised her hand.
Did someone raise a hand? I'm gonna go to the
Charlotte.
gallery view. Charlotte, you've got your hand raised. Yes.
I do. I don't have a question. I have a comment and a hope. My comment is, I'm so glad that we're seeing this. It's a remarkable record of one person's absolutely looking at what's going on and trying to call attention to a horrendous problem. And I hope that there's a permanent record of all of this, of your thoughts, your reactions, and that it gets a very, very wide audience. You are so far ahead of your time, but your time is now. Now I think we're ready to hear it and to do something about it. And I'm sure you had something to do with bringing it to our attention. Has there been like a retrospective of your work? That's my first question.
Yes.
The second is, I'm picturing the 8 children, and I'm wondering what impact that's had for them growing up with such a creative father.
I'm the nutcase in the family. No, my family's been incredible, really incredible. There has been there was a retrospective at the Provincetown Art Association Museum in 2015, and it went to Florida, Atlantic University. There's just a major article in the Sculpture magazine last March, April issue. There's been a lot of public attention to the work. It's never enough, but if you can help get the word out, let's talk.
And just to clarify that those pictures, the big family, those are Jay's siblings. So Jay grew up in a big family, and those are all his siblings. And I believe that they were a singing family. They were on the Mac Amateur Hour as a singing family.
Ted Mac, original Amateur Hour, yeah, like the American Idol of its day. You probably all remember that, right? Well,
a couple people might.
So, I was in front of the camera at an early age, and I feel so. I came from an incredible family. My mother was like a first generation Irish, and she was all about fitting in and education and like just be good people. And my father was like, he was like been around for his family. Just be happy. Just have fun. They never asked us what we were going to do when we grow up. I mean, this is another world. This is ancient history. I was never asked what I wanted to be when I grew up. Just go to college. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it?
I do want to point out that the sculpture article you mentioned was by Elaine King, who was a speaker last time, and her she's here on the call, I believe, she and her husband. And here's another question. Is some of your work a reaction to your Catholic upbringing?
Absolutely. I mean, if you came into my house, you'd see statuary everywhere. I find some solace and power in some of the messages of Catholicism, the universal messages, I feel, although I consider myself a Catholic, I'm not a practicing Catholic, but it was a great foundation, and the rituals too, like I mean, some of the rituals and some of the concepts are certainly important to my work.
Here's a comment. I like how Jay stays in the moment and is keen to comment on it. Bravery.
Mhm.
And here's a question. Would you ever consider wrapping larger things?
Yes. Well, I covered a motel in sand. As far as wrapping, perhaps. I mean, wrapping, mummifying, yes, maybe mummifying a building. You know, Christo did a lot of wrapping. And I don't mean, you know, musical wrapping. But that's an interesting idea about mummifying the Supreme Court or mummifying, you know, the Capitol or something, the Washington Monument. I don't know. One of the statues that, you know, from the South, the Confederacy. Yeah, thanks for the idea. I need help. I need an army of people to help me do all this stuff.
And here is another comment. Tonight, so interesting. Jay, thank you so much. Okay. And here's another. Thank you, Jay, for your creativity, imagination, and all your work. I love the beginning of the talk from the underground space. Keep creating. And here is another one. Oh, this is a suggestion for people to help you. Jay, get interns from a school.
Well, I'd love to.
And I think you worked with students from Four Cs, Cape Cod Community College, and have
I
done some
have.
other things.
I've worked with a lot of students in different places. You know, the museum school, Cape Cod Community College, at Harvard, at you know, visiting artists there, and yeah, I love working with students and people, and so I before we leave, I just like to thank Laura. I mean, Laura is like, we know she's great, but she's also a technician, and she like got me to work all this stuff. I mean, it kind of worked, didn't it?
It did. It did. You just left. You left us for a few moments, but it was
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
We got you back.
but also I'm just grateful. I feel very fortunate. You know, I'm a white male who has had a lot of fortune, and I feel like I want to share what I have and be part of the solution of what's going on in the country. So I appreciate your letting me share these ideas with you. And I do have a show coming up at AMP Gallery, which is on Commercial Street in Provincetown, May 28th through June 23rd. And you can go to my website, jaycritchley.com.
Sure, we'll all check that out and all the different videos. And of course, to see the entire short film he did, that will be at Provincetown Film Festival. We all
Well,
just
it's
got a
not
preview.
official yet, but
We're hoping, I'm sure they would want to show that there. We have more thank yous. We have someone says, I can see the wheels turning, looking forward to what's next. Is there an opening? Is there an opening of your upcoming exhibit at AMP Gallery
yes,
that you just mentioned?
it'll be on the 28th of May.
28th of May, coming up in a month or so.
Right.
And so with that, we'll wrap it up. We'll say thank you so much to Jay, and thank you to all of you for coming. And many of you have come to all four of these. And so we appreciate that so much. And Jay, it's been a thrill. And I think I first asked you to come a few years ago. So we finally got you here on Zoom. And thank you so much.
Let me just say to thank you all for supporting the Falmouth Arts Center and keeping it going and keeping the energy going. And let me just leave with one more moo moo word.
One final moo moo. Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much. Nice to see you all. I'll see you all soon.
Be well.
Thank you to everyone. Take care.